They said I was weak because I cried. They destroyed my name because I trusted them, and when I disappeared, they thought the story was over. They were wrong. My name is Evelyn Carter, and is Evelyn Carter, and this is not a love story. This is the story of how New York broke me, and how America helped me take revenge. New York City never sleeps. But that night, neither did I. Rain slid down the glass walls of the subway station as I sat on a cold metal bench, staring at my phone like it might suddenly apologize. Your access has been permanently revoked. One sentence, one click, and my entire life ended. 2 hours earlier, I was still senior financial analyst at Blackridge Financial, one of Manhattan's most powerful firms. 2 hours earlier, I believed I was finally about to win. I arrived in New York at 23 with a scholarship degree, a cheap suitcase, and one promise to myself: never depend on anyone. Blackridge Financial was my dream. Glass offices, power meetings, numbers that controlled the world. And then there was Richard Hale, my boss, my mentor, the man everyone respected. You're different, Evelyn, he once told me. Stay loyal, I'll protect you. I believed him. That belief destroyed me. Her name was Samantha Cole. Perfect smile, perfect confidence, eyes that measured people like assets. She joined 6 months after me and climbed twice as fast. She laughed at Richard's jokes. She never stayed late. Unlike me, I didn't hate her. I underestimated her. The project that ruined my life was called Atlas Expansion. It was my idea, my model, my sleepless nights. Richard reviewed it himself. This will change Blackridge, he said. You'll present it to the board. Presentation day arrived. I walked into the boardroom, and my seat was gone. Samantha stood near the screen. Richard didn't even look at me. There's been a change, he said calmly. Then she presented my work, my data, my research, my future, and my name never existed. When applause filled the room, Richard raised his hand. Before we celebrate, he said, there's a serious issue. The screen changed. Bank transfers, confidential files, my login credentials. You attempted to sell company data, he announced. I stopped breathing. That's not true, I whispered. Security enter. I was walked out like a criminal. Samantha avoided my eyes. By nightfall, my email was shut down, my reputation destroyed, my name blacklisted. Blackridge released a public statement. Employee terminated due to breach of trust. Recruiters stopped calling. Friends disappeared. And my fiancé, Lucas, sent one message: I can't be associated with this. That night, I sat alone in Brooklyn, staring at city lights that once meant hope. Now they mocked me. Weeks passed. Rejections came quietly. Your background raises concerns. Savings vanished. Confidence died. And then I stopped crying. That was the moment everything changed. Because when a woman stops crying, she starts planning. THE Desipi or NCE. 3 months later, I left New York. I packed light, no memories. Just one USB drive, emails, drafts, access logs. Proof? The bus sign read. As the city disappeared behind me, I whispered, you took everything from me. I will take it back slowly. Chicago didn't care who I used to be. That's why I chose it. Here, Evelyn Carter was just another face. No scandal, no shame. I rented a tiny room and took a diner job, coffee by day, libraries by night. I studied corporate law, financial fraud, power structure. I wasn't rebuilding my career. I was rebuilding myself. That's when I met Margaret Lewis, retired corporate attorney, sharp eyes, no sympathy. She watched me read legal cases one night and said, you're not here to survive. You're here to destroy someone. I didn't deny it. She taught me one rule. Real revenge is quiet. It happens on paper. With her, I learned patience and control. 2 years later, Evelyn Carter disappeared. In her place was Eva Cross. New name, new life. I moved again, this time San Francisco, and this time I was ready. They thought Evelyn Carter was finished. They never noticed the woman watching them grow careless. San Francisco welcomed me with fog. Thick, quiet fog that hid faces, erased details, and softened the past. It felt like the perfect city for someone who no longer wanted to be seen. Here, I was not Evelyn Carter. Here, I was Eva Cross. No criminal record, no scandal, no broken engagement, just a clean resume, a sharp mind, and a woman who knew how power actually worked. The startup was called Northline Analytics. Small, quiet, brilliant. They analyzed behavioral data for investment firms, the kind of work that predicted market moves before they happened. Exactly my strength. During the interview, the founder, Ethan Moore, glanced at my resume twice. "You are overqualified," he said carefully. I smiled. "I'm loyal," I replied, "and I don't make noise." He hired me the same day at Northline. I didn't try to shine, I listened. I watched how investors spoke when they thought no one important was in the room. I noticed how executives ignored quiet women and revealed everything in the process. At night, alone in my apartment, I researched one company obsessively, Blackridge Financial, my former prison, my former executioner. 3 years had passed since they destroyed me. Richard Hale was now a media favorite, interviews, podcasts, headlines. Samantha Cole had become chief strategy officer. They looked untouchable. That's when I smiled. Because the higher people stand, the more confident they become, and confidence makes people careless. 6 months into my job, Ethan called an emergency meeting. "We've been approached by a major firm," he announced. "They want us to consult on a large-scale expansion." The name appeared on the screen, BLACKER-IG, Finney, and Sayel. No one noticed my stillness. No one heard my breath stop. Ethan looked at me. "Eva, you'll lead the analytics team." I nodded calmly. Inside, something ancient woke up. Weeks later, I sat in a glass conference room, thousands of miles from New York, watching Richard Hale on a video call. Older, sharper, more arrogant. He didn't recognize me. Not once did his eyes pause. Samantha spoke confidently beside him, controlling the conversation like a queen. She was smarter now, colder, but still careless. They sent us data, massive amounts of it. And buried deep inside were things they never thought an outsider would question. Offshore accounts, irregular timing, patterns that screamed manipulation. I didn't rush. Revenge is not a sprint. It's architecture. It's our cure. One night, alone in the office, I found it. A series of internal transfers disguised as consulting fees. Legal on the surface, illegal underneath. Insider trading, market manipulation, enough to destroy them. But I didn't act. Not yet. Instead, I saved everything, encrypted, backed up, time-stamped. I was building a weapon. Then something unexpected happened. An email, subject line, Evelyn. My heart froze. It was from Lucas, my ex-fiancé. "I don't know if this will ever reach you," he wrote, "but I need to talk. I made a mistake." I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I closed the laptop. Lucas was not my goal, but he might be useful. Weeks passed. Blackridge grew more dependent on Northline's analytics. They trusted us. They trusted me. And every week they revealed more. Richard signed approvals without reading details. Samantha rushed strategies to impress investors. I never pushed. I waited. Because people reveal the truth when they believe they're safe. Then I made my first move. Not against them, against the system. I anonymously reported a minor compliance issue. Something small enough to cause an internal audit, not suspicion, just pressure. Within days, Blackridge's legal team panicked. Documents were reshuffled, emails deleted. Mistakes were made. And those mistakes created trails. Trails that led directly to Richard Hale. Late one night, Samantha reviewed a report. Her expression changed. "Richard," she said slowly, "someone understands our patterns." Richard laughed. "No one does," he replied. I watched through a secure feed, and for the first time, I saw fear, and as I shut down my computer, I whispered words I had waited years to say. "You took my name, now I will take your certainty." Outside, San Francisco slept peacefully, but across the country, Blackridge Financial had begun to crack. New York looked different when I returned, not because the city had changed, but because the skyline no longer intimidated me. The noise no longer drowned my thoughts. This time, I arrived without fear. This time, I arrived with control. The car slowed near Midtown, glass towers rising like silent witnesses. Blackridge Financial's headquarters stood exactly where it always had. 34 floors of confidence. 34 floors of lies. I didn't walk in. Not yet. I booked a hotel across the street, high enough to see their lights turn on and off at night. From my window, I watched people move inside, unaware that their downfall was already in motion. New York still believed I was gone. That belief was my advantage. The anonymous compliance report I had filed weeks earlier had done its job. Inside Blackridge, lawyers were working overtime. Executives were nervous. Emails were disappearing. Fear changes behavior, and changed behavior creates mistakes. I didn't need to break in. They were opening doors themselves. The call came late. Unknown number, I answered calmly. Evelyn? Lucas's voice was softer now, smaller. Yes, I said. Silence followed. I thought you were dead, he whispered. I smiled. I replied. Why are you calling? He hesitated. Blackridge is in trouble, he said. They're looking for someone to blame. Of course they were. Why tell me? I asked. Because, he said quietly, I know what they did to you. The truth always arrives too late. We met in a cafe near Union Square. Lucas looked older. Guilt had aged him. You left without a word, he said. They took my voice, I replied calmly. I found a new one. He swallowed. Richard is scared, he said. He thinks someone inside the system is working against him. I stirred my coffee slowly. Is he right? Lucas looked at me carefully. I met his eyes and didn't deny it. Lucas had access, not to documents, but to people. He still moved in Blackridge's social circles, still heard whispers. I didn't need him to spy. I needed him to talk. What does Samantha think? I asked. Lucas laughed bitterly, he said. She thinks Richard will sacrifice her. Smart woman. Fear was turning them against each other, exactly as planned. That night, I sent a second anonymous file. This one wasn't small. It connected dots, just enough to suggest internal betrayal. Within hours, chaos erupted. Richard accused Samantha of leaking information. Samantha questioned Richard's offshore accounts. Trust shattered. People stopped covering for each other. 2 days later, I walked into a private finance conference in Manhattan, not as Evelyn Carter, as Eva Cross, consultant, analyst, nobody important. Richard was speaking on stage, confident, controlled, but his eyes betrayed him. When he stepped down, he froze because he saw me, not recognition, not memory, but instinct. Something about me felt familiar, dangerous. He looked away. I smiled. Later that evening, I passed him in the hallway. Our shoulders brushed. He turned. I'm sorry, he said automatically. I looked directly into his eyes and said softly, it's okay. People rarely notice what they're about to lose. He frowned, and for the first time, he felt it. The crack. New York had welcomed me back, not as a victim, but as a shadow, and shadows don't need permission to destroy. Power doesn't disappear all at once. It leaks slowly, silently, until everyone notices the stain. Too late. At Blackridge Financial, the leak had begun. By Monday morning, Blackridge's legal floor was lit before sunrise. Lawyers whispered instead of joked. Assistants avoided eye contact. Executives locked their doors. The compliance inquiry had evolved into something far more dangerous, an internal investigation. Richard Hale hated investigations. They meant questions, and questions meant loss of control. He summoned Samantha to his office. Did you talk to anyone? Richard demanded. Samantha crossed her arms. About what? She replied coolly. About the transfers. Her eyes narrowed. Which ones? That was the moment he knew. She knew more than she should. Trust snapped like dry wood. That afternoon, Samantha received an anonymous message. A simple file, no explanation. Inside were documents showing Richard's private offshore accounts she had never authorized. She stared at the screen, breathing shallowly. Richard had always promised protection. But men who promise protection are usually protecting themselves. From my hotel room, I watched everything unfold through numbers, patterns, and human behavior. Fear makes people predictable. I sent nothing more. I said nothing. I waited. Because now they were doing the work for me. Then came a surprise. Margaret Lewis called me. You've pushed far enough to be noticed, she said calmly. And now regulators are circling. That was the idea, I replied. She paused. You're still invisible, she said. But invisibility ends the moment you want justice. Justice, such a fragile word. I don't want justice, I said. I want closure. By Wednesday, financial blogs began asking questions. Unusual volatility at Blackridge Financial? Executive tensions inside a Wall Street giant? Richard scheduled interviews to regain control. Samantha canceled hers. She was preparing for war. I sent one final anonymous packet. This one went directly to regulators. Complete, clean, legal. Every document verified. Every accusation provable. I didn't exaggerate. I didn't accuse. I let the truth speak. Friday afternoon, trading halted. Blackridge's stock froze. Phones rang nonstop. Richard's office door stayed locked. Inside, He stared at his screen, pale, because now it wasn't rumor. It was official. That evening, Samantha stood alone in the empty boardroom. She dialed Richard's number, straight to voicemail. She whispered to herself, "He set me up." She was wrong, but not entirely. I stood by the window, watching police lights reflect off glass towers. I felt nothing. No joy, no anger. Just clarity. This wasn't revenge anymore. This was inevitability. My phone buzzed. A message from Lucas. "They're finished." I typed back, "No, they're finally honest." Outside, New York watched quietly, and Blackridge Financial was beginning to fall. When power collapses, loyalty is the first thing to die. At Blackridge Financial, loyalty had become a luxury no one could afford. Richard Hale sat alone in his office long after everyone else had left. The city glowed outside his window, indifferent to his panic. Regulators wanted answers, investors wanted reassurance, the board wanted a sacrifice, and Richard understood something terrifying. He could not save them all, which meant he had to save himself. The next morning, Richard requested a private meeting with regulators off the record. Behind closed doors, he came prepared, with files, with names, with one person to blame, Samantha Cole. Samantha felt it before she saw it. The tension, the silence. She accessed her private server and opened files she had kept hidden for years. Backup plans, insurance. Richard had taught her well. By noon, her legal team was ready. By evening, she had something even more dangerous, leverage. The Blackridge boardroom turned into a battlefield. Lawyers argued, executives shouted, trust evaporated. Richard accused Samantha of unauthorized decisions. Samantha accused Richard of orchestrating fraud. Evidence flew across the table. Each document destroyed a relationship. And still no one mentioned my name. Margaret called again. "You can end this quietly," she said. "Or you can end it publicly." I closed my eyes. I remembered the subway bench, the message on my phone, the silence that followed. "Oh, publicly," I said. Some endings deserve witnesses. I prepared my statement. Not emotional, not vengeful, just factual. Every word measured, every sentence provable. I didn't want sympathy. I wanted the truth recorded. The news broke before dawn. Federal investigation expands at Blackridge Financial. By afternoon, Richard Hale was taken in for questioning. Cameras flashed. Samantha watched from her office, frozen. She wasn't relieved. She was calculating. That night, Samantha released her own statement. She cooperated fully. She handed over everything, including proof that the original accusation against Evelyn Carter had been fabricated. My name appeared in public records again. This time, as a victim, I walked into a federal building under my real name. No disguise, no alias. The receptionist looked at me twice. "Evelyn Carter," she asked. "Yes," I said calmly. For the first time in years, I said it without fear. Inside, I testified, not angrily, not emotionally. I described meetings, emails, processes. I watched men who once destroyed me take notes nervously. Power had shifted. As I left the building, reporters gathered. "Do you feel vindicated?" someone shouted. I paused. Then I said, "I feel free," and walked away. America loves a downfall, especially when it involves money, power, and people who once believed they were untouchable. The trial of Blackridge Financial became exactly that. THE Studge. The courthouse in Manhattan was surrounded by cameras before sunrise. News vans lined the street. Protesters argued on sidewalks. Analysts debated outcomes on live television. Inside, the air was heavy with anticipation. This wasn't just a legal case. It was a public execution of a reputation. Richard Hale entered first. No smile, no confidence. Just a man shrinking inside an expensive suit. Samantha Cole followed. Controlled, cold, she avoided the cameras, but not the judgment. They didn't look at each other. Former allies never do when truth stands between them. I sat behind the prosecution, not hidden, not protected, visible. Every camera searched my face. "Who is she?" commentators asked. "She's the analyst who was framed." Someone replied. I didn't correct them. I wasn't just an analyst. I was the proof. The prosecutor spoke calmly. "This case is about power," he said, "and how it was abused." He described the fabricated accusation, the stolen work, the financial manipulation. Each sentence landed like a hammer. Richard stared at the table. Samantha stared straight ahead. Richard's attorney argued ignorance. Samantha's argued coercion. Each blamed the other. Neither denied the fraud. That was the moment the room understood. This wasn't about who was guilty. It was about who would fall first. When my name was called, the room went silent. I walked to the stand without hesitation. I didn't look at Richard. I didn't look at Samantha. I looked at the jury. I told them the truth, not dramatically, not emotionally, just fact after fact. How did you feel? The prosecutor asked. I paused. I felt erased, I said. And what did you do? He asked. I rebuilt myself, I replied. Richard's attorney tried to provoke me. Isn't it true, he asked, that you wanted revenge? I met his eyes. I wanted my name back, I said. Revenge was just the path. No reaction, no tears. That scared them more than anger ever could. Samantha's lawyer asked one final question. Why wait so long to come forward? I answered honestly, because truth needs time, I said, and power needs pressure. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Outside, the nation waited. Inside, Richard shook. Samantha closed her eyes. The foreperson stood on the charges of fraud, conspiracy, and obstruction. Guilty, all counts. The room exhaled. Richard was led away in handcuffs. Samantha avoided cameras, but not consequences. Blackridge Financial collapsed within weeks. Assets frozen. Leadership dismantled. A name erased from Wall Street. As I stepped outside, reporters surrounded me again. One question rose above the noise. Was it worth it? I thought of the girl on the subway bench. Then I said, yes. Revenge is rarely loud at the end. By the time it reaches its final form, it doesn't need witnesses. The world already knows. New York slowly moved on. Another scandal replaced the last one. Another name trended. Another empire fell. Blackridge Financial became a case study. Business schools taught it. Analysts debated it, but I didn't stay to listen. I left New York quietly. Closure doesn't always need applause. Weeks later, I received a message from an unfamiliar address. From Richard Hale. It was short. I didn't know how far it would go. I read it once. Then I deleted it. Regret that arrives after consequences is just another form of selfishness. Samantha called me that night. Her voice was steady, but tired. You won, she said. No, I replied. I finished. She was silent. I did what I had to, she said. So did I. I answered. That was all. No forgiveness. No hatred. Just truth. The final move wasn't legal. It wasn't public. It was personal. I submitted my research, Atlas Expansion, under my own name, not to Wall Street. To the world, I published it. Open source, free, the same motto that had been stolen from me now belonged to everyone. No one could ever profit from it again. Especially not them. Northline Analytics offered me a promotion. Equity, control. I declined. I wasn't interested in power anymore. I was interested in freedom. I moved west, not to hide, but to breathe. A small town, quiet mornings, no headlines for the first time in years. I slept without checking my phone. One morning, as the sun rose, I realized something unexpected. I wasn't thinking about them anymore. Revenge had ended. Life had begun. Winning doesn't feel like people think it does. There is no music, no applause, just silence. And for the first time, that silence doesn't hurt. I wake up before the sun now. Not because I'm anxious, not because I'm afraid, but because I want to. The house is small, wooden floors, windows that face open land instead of glass towers, no deadlines, no boardrooms, just breath. Sometimes I think about her, the girl on the subway bench, the one who stared at her phone, waiting for life to explain itself. She believed pain meant failure. She believed silence meant weakness. She was wrong. Silence was preparation. Revenge didn't make me powerful. It made me precise. It taught me that power hides behind politeness, truth waits for patience, and control is always louder than anger. I didn't destroy anyone. I simply stopped protecting them. Occasionally, people recognize me. They ask questions. Would you do it again? Do you hate them? I answer honestly. No, I say. I outgrew them. That's the part people don't understand. The real victory isn't watching someone fall. It's realizing they no longer matter. One evening, I write a letter, not to Richard, not to Samantha, to myself. You survived, you learned, you let go. I seal it. I don't reread it. Some chapters are meant to stay closed. The sun sets, golden, quiet. I stand on the porch and feel something I never felt in New York. Peace. Not because I won, but because I stopped needing to. If you're listening to this story and waiting for revenge to save you, don't. Growth will do it faster, and it will last longer.